So today my topic is about overcoming the anxiety of API testing. And in our keynote, if you have observed, the tone we set was what's coming for the next 10 years. And if it's API, how are we making our team empowered and enabled to do the job to what it is required? What do I mean by this, and what actually am I trying to build the story here is, I started in 2008 or 9, but before I jump into that story, like I said, following the agenda, I have some test statistics to share, some testing challenges that I have observed over a period of last 16 years, and how I help my team in some non-traditional skill building techniques to embrace APIs into the API test first approach. And lastly, I'll part you guys with some API test maturity model that I have prepared over time. So a little about me. I'm an engineering manager at Litho. I'm also an accessibility advocate. I run a very active meetup group called APIscene, and I'm a very proud Postman Supernova. Yeah, you can get in touch with me either through LinkedIn or Twitter. So now I'll start my story. So I started working in IT. My first job was with SAP back in 2008 in Bangalore. And my first responsibility of hiring test engineers was given in 2013. And when I started, it was a whole new world and experience for me to realize that testing is one aspect of software development where you find people from different educational backgrounds. Not so much in development, if you see, per se. They would have come organically from some computer science background, or they would have done some courses about development or programming languages, and then there is a natural transition of getting into development. But if you actually see the testing as a field, it's wonderful to see how it opens up a very different world for everybody. It's a place where everyone would like to make a career in IT. There can be various reasons for it. Some like IT and they want to come. Some want to make money. Yeah, big dreams. And IT is a very different field. Sorry, testing is a very different field. And when you are a leader of such a field or such a team, you are limited with skill sets. It's not easy that there is someone who can walk in and then start working on the APIs or the front end or all the technologies that your team is working on. So the test preference when it comes, for the last 15 years, I've closely observed, and also I've done some surveys very informally. Like I said, I'm very actively involved in many testing groups, any community buildings and meetup groups and all. So the test preference has always been for the UI approach. 70% of the respondents or the testers have chosen approaching an application and testing an application through UI, and not so much about API. There are various reasons why they don't want to, which we will see in the future slides. There are a few key observations like I just mentioned. Now, if you see the experience and expertise-wise, higher the experience, lesser is the idea of, or the rejection of, no, I just don't want to work with API because I've been working in so-and-so formats or the ways. I'm an exploratory tester, I'm a functional or non-functional tester, I don't know. It can be of any of these fields, and I'm quite comfortable doing what I'm doing. So I don't want to do a makeshift of learning something new and then doing. So there's a complete rejection. But if you come to the other part of the spectrum, where someone is very new, just out of the college, of course the question is, how shall I do it? Because if you see any of these courses, be it BCA, which is Bachelor's of Computer Science, or MCA, or any of these professional courses, testing is not thought as a subject. I mean, like, maybe there is a subject, but not on the hands, like in project type of a job. It's not even considered as a project. It's like, it's a part of your final year submission of developing some module or something. Per se, it's not a project in itself, if you see. So they have to be trained, they have to be taught how testing has to be done, they have to be molded, they given an architecture of, a thought process of how you have to come up with the user cases, how you can connect with the customers and user mindset and stuff like that. So that you have a very big how-to, like how do I even do this? And next, the biggest problem is the imposter syndrome. So as and when they grow in their career, the first thing, if they're not recognizing, they're not realizing how things work, am I even the right person to do it? And this is the biggest problem that every leader of the team faces. It's an imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not the right person. Maybe I can't even move ahead. I can't make my career out of it. You have to talk to them, get them out of this mindset to say, every person can do it. And this little pep talk or the motivation should be backed up with some techniques of helping them building the skill. And that's the crux of this whole presentation that I'm trying to give. Maybe consider any test engineer who have pretty much an experience of 6 to 7 years and a little bit of an expertise of APIs or some form of hands-on experience they've had or they've seen how APIs work. They're lacking the training to catapult them to the next level of the skill. Now, let's consider experts. Maybe there are test engineers who have been working with API, they have been seeing how to handle it, how to parse the body, how to provide the test scripts and blah, blah, etc. Everything, every aspect of API. They lack proper documentation from the development team. So that's stopping them from pursuing it further and taking the API test first approach. If you see any feature that is developed, team goes first head on UI. No one sees a business function being developed in its module level or at the code level. They go directly into the UI because it's easy, it interacts with me, I can see things, what is happening. It connects with me easier, but not so with APIs. And a little ahead is a missing tools. There are no supporting tools which can help specifically for testing. Great, now we are in a very nice decade where we have many tools coming up in support of software testing, specifically the API, but not so much that we can be really proud about. The few challenges that we have seen, and why I put this in the slide is, if you see, the topmost challenge is ensuring the API security, of course. It's very important. The second one is a limited staff skill set. It bothers the team. And that's the main theme here, that if the skill set is bothering, no matter what technological advancements, what Web 3.0, what AI, Metaverse, Fediverse, whatever is gonna come, and if the people is not ready, none of this is gonna take its form in actuality. It's gonna fail, right? So at any technological revolution, if anything is happening, people are the first. So we have to place them first. Now coming to the skill building. Now, let me share one traditional technique, which is training, and some non-traditional technique that I tried with my team. So first one, this cannot be evaded. If you're from an enterprise background, you have good budget, you have people, you have time, anything you can afford and get your employees trained, like how I was trained in SAP back in 2008, it was possible. But if I consider startups or smaller medium enterprises, budget is always a little crunch. It's not possible, right? So in those cases, we had to go for some non-traditional approach. The first thing I tried was pairing. So in this, again, I've tried multiple ingredients to try my sauce. Some pathetically failed, but some really worked, and some did take time to work. So first one is pairing. It definitely took time to work, but it did work. What happens in this is a test engineer just shadows developer when the API testing is being done. This just follows everything and anything that a developer is doing when he or she comes in contact with the API, makes notes of everything that the developer is performing, and then goes back and repeat the same thing. Please mind that this may sound very trivial or something which is not even a problem for many, but at the ground level, this is an issue that not many know how to even send a request, how to even see what happens after a request is sent, what is a response body, and in what formats does the response body comes. The issue is real. And it's more real for the places where we have to hire engineers or test engineers from various different educational backgrounds. Let me tell you, in my own team, I have a professional ballet dancer as a test who did a career shift into test engineering. And I have seen people coming who were chef, who were like maybe into sales. Yeah, so when we have team members like that, we have to take some non-traditional approach like this. And this definitely helped them. So building the story again, the test engineer has to repeat whatever he or she sees that's being done and go back and repeat the same thing. Document the findings, that is, document the findings and then keep on building. It's a repetitive process. It does not stop overnight. It goes on sprint over sprint. The first level is building the confidence, and the next level is keeping up with the confidence and having a sustainable effort towards it. Some key parameters that we have to keep in mind is the presence is very important. I just stand there, you click buttons and I see you, it's not gonna work. There should be an active participation from both the sides. It's a time intensive, like I said, it's not something that's gonna happen overnight. So you have to invest a little bit of time. And it works very well for the long-living teams. If you're from a service industry, you work for a project for 6 months and then you're dismantled and put into the different project. This is not gonna work. It can get slightly tricky. So these are some parameters about working in pairing. The next one is a testing handoff. This is again, the development colleague or whoever is a code implementer is gonna also write the test. So now we call it as unit tests or developer tests. You can call it anything. But when they write the test, they hand over the entire test package to the testing team for the execution and maintenance going forward. So you're taking away the burden of writing new tests because it is already coming as a package to the test engineering team. The responsibility is only to execute and then maintain the failing test to check whether the test is failing because the application is failing at some point, or was it a false negative or a false positive. In this way, there is a continuous learning happening while fixing the scripts. There is also learning happening and a slight confidence building activity in the process. But there's a downside that when developers write the test, they also deal with a time crunch. So if you're running in a fast-paced project, right? You have to deliver within 2 weeks, you have to deliver within 15 days, then you're in a time crunch. Then this is not gonna work, definitely. And I know most of you will say, okay, all our projects are gonna run like that only, right? So we will not have time at all. But at some point, you have to see that tests are written, they're test ops. This is one other important point, that when we write the test, we have to also ensure that it is available for the entire team, it is shared. So which means we are opting for the test ops, which is just like your DevOps. We have the test ops, we have tests written, it's added as a part of your CI/CD pipeline, and it's been run on or executed on a regular cadence, and it's fixed on a regular cadence as well. So a few key parameters of this is, it helps for a self-managing team. If your team is new, you're slightly building the team afresh, then do not try this, because then it becomes a blame game. It's good for the team who are settled, who understand, who are quite mature, and are able to do a mature conversation and not personal conversations, then this definitely helps. Test ops should be in place, like I said. Having test code in a developer laptop or a tester's laptop and then they executing, it's not gonna help. It has to be running in the CI/CD pipeline in regular cadence, and test engineers have to trigger the tests and maintain the tests, failing tests, everything. If the failing tests are not maintained on time, then there is a maintenance debt gonna grow over a period of time, and the whole concept will fall apart. And this is a main thing. Why many things doesn't work is because it's not sustainable, because something is not maintainable, and someone is not fixing the test, and at some point, people forget. The last one, which is working really good for me right now for the last 8 months, is using the low-code tool. In the low-code tool, right now we are using Postman. So here we have something called action blocks, if you see. And every action block performs a particular set of action. Like there is a send block which sends an API request, and then there is a for loop where you can loop over the response body. Or there is a conditional block where you can pick and choose a condition that you can perform on a response body. Now, we are still doing the same thing as what is required in a test script, but what I'm taking away is a burden of knowing a particular programming language from my team. My team is able to connect much better with this concept, because if I say, hey, look, you just have to send this API. To do that, you have to get this block. The person need not have to understand every aspect that goes behind in doing it, but he connects well. So we are able to build our open API test packages, our internal API test packages, making use of this Postman API flow. It's been going great as well. The one other unknown advantage has happened for us is they're able to communicate well with the product owners. So they can build the end-to-end flows and just trigger these. I hope I can run it again. And see, it's visually appealing, and it's easier to understand and digest. So it's helping us in both the ways. So we have our test scripts running, and we are also able to make a better conversation with our product management team because of these API flows. So some key parameters is because it gives us every low-code tool, the main objective is to give you an easy onboarding or a quick onboarding. And this definitely helped us. There may be other tools out there, but I have been working with Postman for the last 10 years, and it's easier for me to digest this tool in its nativity. So, but I always encourage you to try other tools if they are in the market, but it definitely helps you. They also support integration with the operations, with the CI/CD, so my team can always leverage this in its entirety, so I'm not restricted to having a flow sitting in somebody's laptop. It gives, like I said, it gives a very good visual impact. It connects with the people better. It can work with any tech stack, so I'm not arrested that you should use only C# or Java or anything like that. So it has helped our team. So this is the last thing which I want to share with you is the API test maturity model. Every organization should have a look where they stand when it comes to the API quality management. We have several aspects of API like security, performance, load, I mean like everything. It's entire gamut of activities. But for us, what matters is where do you stand when it comes to the testing maturity. So the first one is an abstracted maturity model where there are no tests, nothing. You mostly probably come across this in startups because it's a fast-paced environment. Everything has to be done quick, go into the market so that you can gain some revenue to keep business afloat. So most likely that all startups are in this abstracted level. But from the abstracted, we all start with abstracted level, but the idea should be to move to the next level, which is the limited level, where something is better than nothing concept works, where you have some unit tests running, which is at least executed by developers on a regular cadence, some tests happening on a regular basis. There should be something happening there, right? So if not in its entirety or in the whole gamut of testing or entire coverage, there's a limited activity that is happening. If you're in the limited set of activity, I encourage your team move to the collaborative stage where you have good set of API tests, good set of end-to-end tests, there's a good coverage happening. Your team feel more safe and secured in building the continuous improvements of the APIs quickly. And there's a shared execution where you're not limited by one person to execute this so that there is no blame game. It happens, like I said, on a regular cadence whenever there is a PR or a code push happening. Fourth one is very tricky. In my last 16 years, I have seen only one team who's reached this stage of the organized, where they are well managed, all API end-to-end tests are there, unit tests are maintained, test ops are clean, the builds are clean, the false negatives or false positives are reduced. They have a very good identified card-out process for their API, but like I said, in my last 16 years, I've seen only one team be in this stage. But again, the team was not in a hurry of delivering things. They took their pace in delivering things, so I think that is why it was possible. But at the end of the day, in the continuous improvement model of our software development process, somewhere we had to reach this stage is, yeah, it's an ideal La land is team-driven, where everything is green, everything is super nice, and yeah, so I've not seen any teams reach level 5 yet. But I wish we can. So that's the end of my talk, where you can help your team with some non-traditional way of learning API and API testing for your team. If you have any questions.
Thanks very much, Sowmya.
Thank you.
So we have time for a couple of questions, but
yeah, that gentleman has a question.
But just wait for the microphone before you ask your question because it's being recorded.
You want a microphone? Yeah, he wants a microphone.
Yep.
Thank you for the talk. And the only question that I have is, your focus was in software engineering, and how we can guarantee the quality of machine-to-machine, communication when some of the time your consumer is not in your enterprise. You don't know how they are consuming your service. How we can guarantee this kind of scenarios, use cases that are out of our scope?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So when you do not know how your consumer is using your product or your APIs, I think one thing we did was we did something called involving potential customers. We wouldn't say the actual customers, the potential customers very early in our development. Like we were developing creative operations, open APIs. We don't know when we are given an open API, anyone can consume these one. But we included the companies like a partner who can partner with us and see and try our APIs and see how they can integrate with our APIs. And this is a little more technical, not your testing team can help. So you need a testing expertise. So we identified the people. We also call it as a crowd testing. So we involved people from the backgrounds who had technical knowledge to do it. But there is still a risk. So we accepted the risk of up to 25%. Like for example, Zapier integration, you never know how APIs are used, right? So, but this is the approach we used. And we are living with a risk of 25% even now. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.